us owning our lifestyle. As we sit on Farish Street, this is an economic center that allowed for us to employ us. So jobs are important, but who owns the business is the important part, and then we'll get our own jobs. We have no problem as black business owners employing our own people. So as we champion for jobs, we must champion for the economic control. Several other groups, they do two things well. They're not smart, they do two things well. They find the money and control it. Find the money, control it. I believe they even take dollars and rub them on the bellies of the pregnant women, teach their children to find the money and control it. And as a community, or as an individual first, we must practice that as individuals, couple that in our marriages and our homes, and then our communities will birth that. The reason we had strength, we all come from strong families, is because we come from farming backgrounds here in Mississippi. I know I do. Where we controlled our economic. Everything on this operation was used for the betterment of the whole. With as minimal waste as possible. So from each of you's different point of view, this next round of questions, can we talk about economics? Because Attorney Rose talked about how the state moves money around and then it doesn't get put in Jackson, it gets put in Madison, Rankin County. Well, you know, just like the outlet mall that's over there, the state of Mississippi gave them $27 million. What would happen if we put $27 million in the Metro Center? Right? Costco, $29 million of state incentives are going into one business to go in one place. These are economic fights. So could each of you talk about how to find resources and money and control it? And from that control, you can get some smart children. You can get some educated children. I can send them to Harvard if I have the economics to do so. So could each of you talk about garnering resources and getting ways for our community to control those resources once we receive them?
And can we limit the response to 1 minute?
Yes, you limit your response to 1 minute. Start right here with Dr. Anderson. Start again.
This is going to come a little bit differently. Again, I guess I'm just stuck in a rut right now. Who moving money around? I just want to make sure that I get my message across tonight. The bill that was passed last year of the Commission on Interpersonal Violence seemed like an innocent bill. It was supposed to be a bill, she's going, she knows. It was supposed to be a bill that was going to help make sure that we didn't spread our money all over, but centralize it and had more ways to get federal monies in, as well as the money that the state had in terms for domestic violence, human trafficking, sexual assault, child abuse, and all of those. But once we pulled that bill and started reading it, halfway down through the bill, they were proposing that the governor establishes a commission of 7 people. This is one time in any bill that I've ever read that he was going to appoint all 7 people to the commission. Usually the Attorney General would get somebody, the Speaker of the House would get somebody. He was going to have all, that was the first red flag. The second red flag was that the commission was then going to control all of the monies that come into the state would come through this commission, even the money that was already legislatively allocated to the Department of Human Services, the Drug Enforcement Agency. All of those agencies were getting money from different places to handle those, but all of it was going to be under this commission. And this commission then was going to decide how much went to certain areas. That's control. They write us out of anything dealing with economics by putting it in bills where certain people control it, a small group of people. That's what I think we started watching more, where the money is going. Every year, those bills change in terms of who gets to control where the money goes. I think that's part of controlling the economics and making economy and making sure you see what's happening. The last part of that really freaked me out was, in that one bill, after they decided they were going to control all the money, the governor would also appoint the executive director. And the executive director would also then nominate her advisory committee. And all of that is about control. When you start talking about how the economy is controlled, who controls the money, it's right there in those bills that they write to protect themselves for the next 10, 15, 20 years.
Ditto. See, that's a lot less than a minute, but so I'll just be a little bit longer. I would reiterate that, and to speak about something that DeKeitha just said. I said, okay, thank you. He just said something about entrepreneurship, owning the businesses, and getting to hire our own people. That's crucial, that's important. Everybody is not gonna be a business owner. Everybody is not gonna, be able to do that for themselves. But if we invest in our own communities, if we invest, our churches start investing, you can actually pool your money, as a church, buy land and do things with it for your own community. We don't think in terms of that sometimes, and sometimes other politics get in the way. But we've got to stop doing that to ourselves and realize that we do have resources. Also realize too that our children, and I know we say we know this, but we've got to really know it. Our children are just as, actually, I'm just gonna say it. We're all black in here. I won't say it elsewhere. And if you say it, I'll deny it. But our children are the most talented, most brilliant, the arts, education, anything you want to think of. Black people have it, but we don't know what we don't have. When we go to law school, we go to these professional schools, what we don't have is the playbook. We have to learn it the hard way, on our own. People don't just give us the game because we are the first lawyer in the family or the first doctor in the family. So we've got to figure it out, so we have to learn some hard lessons and bump our heads. We need to start as a community. When you know and you have the knowledge, when you've been an entrepreneur, when you have been, you need to start mentoring someone when you're getting ready to close. There's no reason why you should have a store.
Say it again.
And when you are ready to retire, that your store just shuts down like it was never there. There should have been somebody that you were training up, somebody that you were teaching to take over your store. If it wasn't your kid, if your kid didn't want to do it, that happens sometimes as parents. I'm not a parent yet, but I've seen it. As parents, you can do the best that you can. Maybe your kid didn't want to follow you. But maybe it's another child or somebody who really has an interest and doesn't have a parent there that can nurture them. Help that kid. Help who wants to be helped, and nurture your own community. Start giving each other the playbook. We can do it. We're smarter than them. We're better than them. We know that. So start using it. But that's my advice on economics.
So let me say this real quick so I can remember what I'm supposed to say. So economic literacy, the impact of the church, and then education again. I'm not embarrassed to say this, although I'm embarrassed. I looked at my student loan statement about a couple of years ago, and that was the first time I looked at it. And it could have been the fact that I had just looked at it when I first got it. I took out forbearances, interest rate, just really paying off the interest rate. I literally owed the exact same thing that I owed in 1999. So economic literacy is extremely important. This is somebody, who got more days behind me than I do, I guess, ahead of me. So in terms of the church, so economic literacy is extremely important. I link that to the church because when I go back to Demona, the love that those folks had for each other was just unbelievable. And that was the one case where I saw black nationalism work. And I think that's the void. You've seen black nationalism trying to be incorporated all across this nation. Many instances it doesn't work in terms of entire communities, but this is an entire community where they actually buy from one another. They have their own. They have a restaurant over in Atlanta. It's a vegan restaurant. It is unbelievable. So we need to focus on actually educate us about us. So I keep going back to this point about education. Before Mr. Al Jordan died, for whatever reason, he would come to my lectures because I was doing this stuff on self-hatred and racial identity. And I didn't know why he just kept coming. He even called me from Jamaica twice. I had a missed call from him, something. We called him real quick. And he just, noticed this transaction where this dark complexion woman said something to this light complexion woman, and he thought about the self-hatred piece. But real quick, I'm just thinking intuitively beyond what I do as a political scientist.
And I told him, he said, you know, my customer service rating was extremely low, and it was the restaurant on Highway 80. And I said just intuitively, I said, well, when you get someone who wake up in the morning who's an employee, and they look in the mirror, and they're like, ooh, I hate you. And then you get a client who comes in to order some coffee, and the coffee's not cold, and they look in the mirror that morning, they say, ooh, I hate you. And so when those two come together, they clash. And so those are the folks who are gonna call the 1-800 number for whatever reasons, because they have this internalized racism. And I keep going back to it and keep going back to it, and I'm gonna stay with it, that we have to educate us about us. You know, you talk about this, I'm ending, but I'm not closing, I'm ending. When we went to Egypt and saw those temples, and they were there 4,000 years, and we know that we actually built them, and there's no way that we would know that had we not gone there. I mean, you know, that's not in a textbook in any local school system.
Right.
So that's stuff that we need to actually be teaching in the church or any other community organization. But again, I think customer service, us, we need to learn more about us.
Sort of picking back, Dr. Oriel, what you talked about. One of the best times we had economic development within the African American community was doing segregation. And segregation, you could not shop at the white places. All of our black professionals lived in the same community with the people who were going to work on the farms, on the store every day. We had local stores, restaurants, dentists, lawyers on Farish Street. Segregation forced us to do business with one another. And there was no talking about jobs because the community, we hired each other. But the minute we could go where the other folks were, we went. And all of our businesses went down. We even think they're businesses. This old saying that I remember coming up: white man's ice is colder, white man's sugar is sweeter. And it's internalized within our community right now that we always think wherever they are is better. How do we change it? We have people in position who can. Legislators. And we have to get our legislators to think as a collective body and not as individual legislators. Look at me. I often talk about our black elected officials, Lakeitha. I said, I tell this story all the time that I think they have the Minnie Pearl syndrome. And Minnie Pearl was a country western grand opera singer, and she used to wear a new hat every Saturday night, the Grand Ole Opry with a tag on it. And she said, you know, the first thing she said, I'm just so proud to be here. Just proud to be the Grand Ole Opry. Many of our black elected officials are just proud to be in those offices. That's why I said they had the Minnie Pearl syndrome. They're just proud to be, and they don't do anything except get upset when they have meetings and you don't recognize them, have dinners and stuff and don't recognize them. But the rules, the folks who control that process make the rules. Every time the African American community figure out how to navigate the rules, they change those rules. Economic development. You can't get a lot of professionals to do bidding on certain contracts because of the bid requirements. No, but we have folks at the legislature who ought to say, let's change the rules to make it so that our folks can do the bidding. Just because it's been that way, that doesn't mean it have to be that way forever. Change the rules, even within the city council. City council, they've been doing bidding stuff a certain way for so long. Wait a minute. If our folks are not getting into these bids, let's change the rules. So we got to get our folks to start thinking collectively when we send them to office, and get legislators to think about not what's in their own personal best interest, but what's in the best interest of the collective, and get them to act in that way. And one of the things I've talked to Black Caucus members several times about doing this, but they're afraid to do it because they're afraid of how they look politically, is if they're not willing to change the rules, shut it down. They can stop that legislative process. They can require every bill to be read word for word. Shut it down. Shut it. But we don't have folks who have that conviction. And they always come to the black legislators to make deals. But I've never known a black legislator be able to go and get a successful deal from the white legislator. So just shut it down until we change. Let's change the rules on all this stuff. Change the rules.